Blog Talk Radio.
Honestly, don't promise me you'll never leave. Honestly, there's not much that I need from you, baby. All I need is for you to be here, baby. So you don't have to promise me that you won't ever leave. There's no need to buy my love with expensive things. Won't ask you to lie to me about things that will never do. I just want you here with me, right here, honestly. Don't promise me you'll never leave. Honestly, that's all I need. I hope you heard me. But just in case you didn't, I said I didn't need much from you. I just need you to be here today with me. Don't promise me tomorrow, 'cause tomorrow may never come. Don't have to promise that you won't ever have to. There's no need to buy my love with expensive things. I don't want any of that. Lie to me about things that will never. I just want you here with me. I mean every word I say. Oh, yes I do, baby. I need you right here today. Just need you to grab my hand, say it fast, listen to my thoughts sometimes. That's mine. I don't need no promises, baby. I just need you.
Hey, evening to you. You just logged in to Raw But Real. Today we got a special show for you. This show today is going to be based on marriage. I and my wife are both Hebrews. And I remember when the first time we both got into our marital arrangement, there was a question that kept coming up. with things that were not being spoken about in certain congregations. and we was having very interesting conversations on. Matter of fact, let me have my wife explain what that dilemma was at the time before we start getting deep into this conversation today. So, Mama, what was our conversation that we was talking about?
Hey, we had so many marital conversations, Daddy. I'm not sure which one you're referring to, but I know we talked about a multiple of things. Some of the things was the dress attire for the women. Some of the things were the position that a woman plays with her husband and her husband plays in her life. And also we had conversations referring to multiple marriages. So it's been a lot of things, but one of the major things I know we spoke about was building a foundation of a marriage. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes. Well, the reason why we're bringing this discussion to y'all today, and let me say this right now, we're not no professors, nor do we profess to be. But what we will be doing today, we'll be breaking down from the laws of Yahweh, where you can listen and where you listeners can actually read along with us and to come back to this show on YouTube and to keep hearing it and to be reminded as to, according to law, what is the proper way and how to build our own households. So today will just be on the foundational aspect of marriage and what is required of every man, how a household should be properly constructed. Mama, you with me?
Yes, Daddy, I'm right here with you. Absolutely. Foundation.
First of all, we're going to be turning to Deuteronomy 24, verse 5. But before we get off into the scripture real quick, I just only want to let the listeners know this. The scriptures was never written sometimes in a way to where a person may see it as speaking literal. Inside the Torah, there's 613 laws. And usually, in accordance to how Father Yahweh had designated the laws to Moshe, the laws and the secrecies of his laws was usually confined into the quarters of the Levites. Those things were specifically given to them as their instructive guide to allowing the people to understand what is the appropriate mannerism as to how people's social structures and home environment was to be ran. Now all of us will always be in total agreement with the Creator. Down here, we're right now being allowed to live in any given way in which we choose is right within our own eyes. But today, to bring to you what is written beneath a lot of these words and taking you from the literal aspect and being able to see beneath it to create the conversation. Since simple fact, me and my wife was having this conversation in our beginning because of situations that were going on out there, in which I do know brothers today that just goes out and just choose specific wives in which they choose that is according to the desire of their own eyes, without even building their own individual foundations first. So without us having to speak so much on foundations and without you having to continuously hear that, but yet not completely understand what we're talking about, this we will break down in this scripture. So I'm going to read you this verse first, and then I'm going to go back, and then we're going to break it down from the Strong's Concordance, certain words. We're not going to make this a long dissertation of breaking these things down. We're going to make it short, straight, key words will be broken down. And then after it's broken down, I will then give you the understanding. And then you can go back and see if whether or not that was actually written there in that type of esoteric way. So let's start from Deuteronomy 24, verse 5. That's all we will be reading today. Now, I'm reading from a House of Yahweh Bible, but the translation from the Strong's Concordance is broken down from the King James. So I will be going back to certain words so that those words are broken down appropriately to the Strong's Concordance. It says, if a man has become recently married, he must not be sent to war or be charged with any other duty, but he shall be free at home 1 year, in bringing joyfulness to his wife he has married. Now, just from the general reading, it may come off as being a man must not be sent on a military mission, and that if he has become recently married, you shall allow him to stay home that 1 year so he can bring joy to his wife that he just married. Now, that's the literal meaning in which a person would literally imply it. But now let's break this down. In order for you to get the multiple aspects as to what Father Yahweh was actually saying beneath a lot of these words, it says, if a man has become recently married, he must not be sent to war. Now, the war means a campaign. This is coming from 6635 of the Strong's Concordance on the Hebrew section. A campaign. Campaign means a connected series of operations designed to bring about a particular result. It also means hardship. Hardship was broken down as to implying something that causes or entails suffering or privation, in which privation means lack of what is needed for existence. This word goes to 6633, and it means to amass an army or servants. Servants implies one who performs duties about the home. This word goes to 6634 in the figurative sense of summing one's wishes, also meaning to please. So if a man has recently become married, he must not be sent to war or be charged. The next word is charged that we're going to look at before we break down these definitions. Charge goes to the Hebrew 5674 in the Strong's Concordance, and it means to cross over, to cover, in copulation, to do away, escape, go his way, overrun, make to pass, provoke to anger, put away, or turn away. Those definitions was under the word of charge. It says he must not be sent to war or be charged with any other duty. Duty goes to the word business in the James Concordance. And this word goes to the Hebrew 1697. Now listen what business means. A word, a matter as spoken of, to harm or hurt, pleasing, to question, talk. This goes to 1696, to arrange, to speak, declare, rehearse, using entreaties, and also to destroy. Now, the next word we're going to look up before we break these words down is he shall be free at home 1 year. The word free goes to 50 in the Strong's Hebrew section, and it means clear, exempt, release from some liability or requirement to which others are subject. Now let's go back up for a minute, because I know right now some of y'all may be a little bit confused. It says he must become, if a man has become recently married, he must not be sent to war or be charged with any other duty. Now the word war does not necessarily mean war. The word war means a campaign. person setting about a connected series of operations designed to bring about a particular result. And it also means hardship, something that causes or entails suffering or privation. In other words, a man must not go out after he has received his first wife and go out and seek additional women to become part of his household in the form of a campaign because of the hardship that it brings upon his first wife. This is what Gore was talking about, because it brings about a certain emotional dilemmas inside of a woman's mind. She doesn't even know you just yet. She doesn't even really understand you. And you still showing some form of a greed or some form of a desire because you want to please yourself. And in the sense of pleasing, you bring about a whole host of suffering. And this goes to 6633, which means to amass an army or servant. You have men out there now to this day seeking to amass nothing but many women inside their household because of things that they see from that of their very eyes. It's not in accordance to a law that they seeking to build strong structure. In order to have a strong foundation, your strong foundation must initially encompass you building your wife, growing and coming to understanding one another and one another's purpose, unifying each other's language, and not seeking to amass by means of, as we go to 6634, in the figurative sense of summoning one's wishes, which means one's selfish ambition causes war, strife between those of women. And it says, he must not be sent to war or be charged with any other duty. The word charge means to cross over, to cover in copulation, not thinking that oneself or what one has to give to out of his wife is just merely just sex, and that he can do away with her, or that he can escape his obligation because it's only about his desire of wanting to get her inside the bed, wanting to overrun and speaking in a way to her because he's becoming hardened of heart for no apparent reason at all, because of his own mistrust, because of how he's dealing with her as a reflection to how the things that he's doing against her, to provoke her to anger, to put away because he has a dislike and a liking for those of another woman. This is what the law was talking about, that he must not be charged with, that you must not cross over and start behaving in this particular fashion, which goes right back into war. And this is why it says he must not be sent to war or be charged with any other duty. Duty is business, which is now beginning to speak in the form of your language. The language today must be in unity. It must be building. The laws of Yahweh was intended for a man to really be, to learn how to patient and balance his mind. So his mind, his aspiration, and his physical genitals is in a well understood state. As to first, let my desires be that of my wife. Let me build that confidence. Let me build that trust. Let me build that stability first. Because that's all that she's asking of me. This is our first obligation to our wife. And not provoking or bringing any form of suffering, or speaking in the specific language that allows you to be able to feel like just because you're a man that you can go out and you can do what it is that you please because you're the husband, and you're breaking down your own household in the process of it. This is what it meant in the figurative sense of summoning one's wishes to do as you please. And this is what he says in 1696, all under business, to speak, to declare, to rehearse. The language today is being rehearsed as of a man, that a man can do what the hell he want to do. that the law supports it without a person even building his initial foundation. So when my wife asked me these questions of what does the law speaks about, I've been in situations to where I was not even informed. People spoke, but didn't nobody never show me where it says in the law that the law implies this. So this became a good question and a good topic of discussion. And we said, you know what, this needs to be spoken over air. This needs to be shown. This needs to be highlighted. The language needs to change because the language of the business is destroying exactly what it is that we men are striving to do. It's destroying everything that it is that we're supposed to be standing for and actually building. The second part of it is he must not be sent to war, or he must not strive to go to war or be charged with any other duty. But he shall be free at home 1 year. The word free means he must clear himself. He must exempt himself from any other liability or requirement to which others are required. Yes, there's other individuals that may have more than one wife within their household. You can't see what other people have. You can't see what other people are doing and seek to emulate it and then seek to want to emulate the same thing. No, you're clear from that. You're exempt from that requirement. First, build your own household. First, understand the language of your wife. Let both you two become in tune with what is upstairs being spoken. There's a different form of a dialect in her that she has to learn from you. This is what the Lord was teaching me as I was gradually beginning to understand the Torah. And as my wife was one day asking me, baby, what is the law? Because these specific things were occurring in this congregation. And yes, I have Hebrew brothers, other brethren that are under the same specific perspective. And a lot of us move because of our own form of ego or only because we say that we can do it. And it's different from us just picking one scripture and using that as our premises of thinking that we can just do this because we're men and this is the position that we play without building your foundation. And without building your foundation and then breaking your foundation because you're going out receiving additional women based on lustful means, but yet not saying it. So this is what me and my wife was talking about. And Mama, from now us being able to break this down, what is your thought process?
You know, it's something because having been in this way of life for a while and been on different places and spoke to different people and been in different connections and, you know, places of worship, it's something that I truly felt was needed. You know, and I'm so glad that we had this conversation and that you're able to break it down the way that you are, because unfortunately you have a lot of brothers that feel entitled to do what they want to do, irregardless of what they put their wives through. And I love the idea of what you said, because you have to build the wife that you've taken into your home. You know, I often have this saying that I used to say that don't have the dog with the bone syndrome. You know, it's like, oh, you have what you need to nurture you. You have what you need and what the Father has given you. And then as you cross over a lake, you see a reflection and you see something else that you want, and you lose what you have to get that something else. And it becomes a repetitive character. You just keep doing that when you don't have to lose what you have, but you can build on that very foundation. And as you brought out so wonderfully, build up your wife. She's your foundation. Build her up. Make her strong. Make her secure. You know, and I love the words that you said, because a lot of the men say, oh, she's just insecure. No, this is your job to help her to be secure. And I love the fact that that the Lord tells us that take that year out and build your wife up. You know, put her in that safe place where she'll be able to move to the next level. You know, And I think that this was just so important, and you definitely broke this down wonderfully. We don't have to get rid of what we have or destroy what we have in order to get something else. We should be building on top of that foundation, and the foundation is stay firm if we do the right thing. Like I said, I've been to a lot of places. I know people. I've had friends that were in, multiple marriages, and they wasn't done correctly, which led to a destruction and breakdown of the family unit. See, the marriage is the foundation of the family unit, and it's important that we don't break that down. I just love the way that you brought that out. The law is the law, and it states it very clearly. And I love the fact that you were able to give the expoundment on the words. The words are so important. That word war is powerful. So I love the fact that you was able to break this down. And I truly hope that the brothers and the sisters are listening, because the more you bring these things out, the more we all can learn.
Y'all just tapped into raw but real. And we about to go on this brief commercial. And I want y'all to check out this song called Believe by Raheem.
Believe in me. Believe in me. You must believe. Believe in me. With affection, like a dreamer, patience and understanding, like a teacher with a student, vice versa. Promise not to hurt you, not to leave, not to lie, not to cheat, not to fuss, not to stress, not to rest. And your past, since I'm here before your eyes, let's make love to sunrise. I'll be something like a rebirth of love with a twist. Let's start it right here, right now. Simple kids, what could be more precious than the rebirth of love? Oh got another way I want to tell you. Dig it. About this crazy world, huh? Being one step away from war. So tonight, baby, I wanna make love to you and more. That's the world, baby. Come and do it. And if we should die, in the next life, I'm gonna love you the same. Love ain't gonna change. No, 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 no. Oh, please believe in me.
All right, you just tapped in to Raw Real 613. I'm Konanyah, and I'm on this line with my wife, Tlssah. Now, I want to talk to y'all about something for a minute before I begin on this next part. Proverbs 30:31 spoken the absolute truth. Sometimes it's not about a virtuous wife as applying a virgin. When those words are broken down from a Strong's Concordance, you get a complete different understanding of certain. So, one thing I learned about life, and especially when I started going on my quest of trying to understand things that I did not know, there was a period of my life, just to give y'all a little understanding of the speaker. It was a period in my life where I went basically celibate. I didn't want nobody. But I wanted the man upstairs to teach me how to be a man. I prayed that prayer, just teach me how to be a man. Because I was raised around a father who was an international player, like I like to call him, a mother that I call her a she pimp, and I had a granddad from my mother's side who was a pimp. I didn't want to be none of that. I started really experiencing a sense of identity crisis. So one day I broke down on my knees, and I got down on my knees, and I actually went upstairs, and I said, you know what? The one thing I want to ask you, teach me how to be a man. I didn't realize at that time, asking him them words, that it would involve me having to read a lot of books into history. In reading into books, I started seeing there was the same pattern of understanding of obstacles that every man were going through. And didn't no one person in history have it so simple to where the perfect wife came in their life at every given drop of dime. It didn't happen that way. It came through a trials of just series of situations, series of relationships that looks like it has the possibility, but then all of a sudden it just fumbles. I was in one of those I was in quite a few of those situations to where I had a previous wife, a former wife, who I thought, okay, maybe she may have been the one when that time came when I said, Father, I'm now ready. But I didn't realize that when I said I was ready, he was like, no, you're not ready. But I didn't find this out till having to go through them experience. So when I get my former wife, the first one, I'm like, okay, I see she was talking upstairs. I see she had that sense of understanding. We was both raised from the streets. And now I wasn't never coming from a perspective of I spoke as a person, though I came from church. I never lost my sense of finesse. Because with the changing of the language, with the breakdown of the language, you start seeing there comes a different dialect, and you can still communicate with your people in a certain particular way where they don't think you're different, but you speak in a higher form of intellect. So when I was speaking, I started thinking, okay, maybe she is inside the same Pacific realm as I. Okay, maybe we can read the Bible together. Even though I've read into a lot of books. I was reading into Islam. I was reading into the Bhagavad Gita. I was reading about the Sanskrit. But I was so stuck on the Torah. I was so stuck on I called the Bible a book of politics, and please forgive me because I don't mean that in any disrespectful fashion, but it's a governmental system when it's actually broken down, and I started seeing the social structure of it, the political structure of it. I started seeing how certain things dealing with the administrative, the executive, and how certain things were to be coordinated. Everything had a strategic order to it. And this is the reason why Yeshua was able to speak in such an eloquent fashion about the tax should he pay to Caesar. Give unto Caesar what belongs unto Caesar, and give unto Yahweh what belongs unto Yahweh. He understood the political infrastructure of it all. This is why he was able to speak in such an eloquent fashion that so many people couldn't understand him. So I started realizing, hold on, I see this is a beautiful system. And I see the same system implemented right inside Islam from the Quran. And I said, wow, there's the same identical system operating here. So when I started seeing that, I said, okay, so what is the meaning of being a man? So that meaning of being a man started making me think. It started making me wanting to read more, but started wanting me to have a craving for a wife that was just as detailedly, intimately with upstairs as I was. First situation, what I thought didn't come to appear. So I said, wow. I went back upstairs after one failed situation. Then I started questioning myself. Well, what is this? Is it me? Because I was supposed to be in too stern, too strict, having a purpose that did not jive with theirs. So then when I came across my second situation, I'm thinking I had fresh air. But then the whole situation looked very promising. But then all of a sudden the carpet gets swept right underneath my feet. So then all of a sudden my wife right now came into the picture. Then I started seeing where there was an absolutely difference in everything. And I said, wow, this is the virtuous. This is what the one she was speaking with. Because me building with my wife right now, as I often tell her, the beauty in how she is so connected with upstairs, how all of a sudden it becomes unbelievably undeniable, how we can be hearing the same exact same thing, the same identical time, that it doesn't sound spooky to us both, how we don't look at each other as being crazy. Then I started listening to her, and I said, wow, all she's asking of me is to love her. Then I started understanding this is what you mean by build your foundation. Because whilst we building this trust, we becoming in sync. We becoming to feel one another. And yeah, I have my time at certain designated time because as a man, as we are men, we men have a certain particular way of how we do certain things. But it started teaching me, hold on, she got the voice. Then I started getting knocked across the head from upstairs, and I really started thinking, wow, this stuff is really real. I got to start listening to her because the Father gave her a part of insight that was not given unto us men. There's a different dialect to that of the woman. But I would not have known that if I did not take this time out to spend with my wife and to really know her and to see what that difference was. Yeah, we still have our arguments. Yeah, we still have our days. But we never lose the love that we have for one another, which is remarkable. Because it's teaching us tolerance. So I started understanding this is what you meant by that law. We become each other's food, words of comfort and words of inspiration. We become each other's clothing, that sense of knowing that you are loved in the way to where it's feeling like you're putting on a robe. And we become each other's marital rights, that marital privilege to one another's physical bodies because we cherish that. So as I started growing and I started seeing this, it made me start understanding this is why he said, build your foundation. This is why he tells us men, when I build you for the appropriate woman that I set in your life because she sets your mind right. She sets your heart aright. As she learns, you learn. And you both come to understand the dynamic of this administration that is done from above. So as I started looking at this, I said, wow. Then I started asking my wife. I said, do you see the same thing? And she used to tell me this. What she used to tell me, Mama, what is the conversations that we have as we learn together, and it's basically putting everything in the public so the people can understand, as they all have their own similarities to those that will relate. What is the things that you have spoken, the things that you've seen, the things that we talk about that makes building this foundation so important?
I want to first say that one of the first things that was amazing to me is that we held tight to was not to bother the carpet. I've never in my life heard somebody say that. We're not going to touch the carpet, which means that no matter how much we don't agree, the cement, we're not going to touch the cement, and that we're not on carpet. And the reason for that is that we're not going to touch this foundation. You would always say that because even with the disagreements, we don't look for a way out. We look for a way to work through it. You know, a lot of times people have difficulties, and this is one of the things that we stayed on, especially in the beginning. A lot of times people have difficulties, and they look for a way out. They look for how to get past this by not dealing with it. And one of the things that we learned to do was to deal with it and not to put carpet up under each other's feet and not to get off of the concrete and not to bother the concrete or destroy that foundation. And that has been one of the major things for us from the very beginning, from day one. When my husband said to me, I'm not on carpet, you're not on carpet. We are on concrete, and we're not going to touch this foundation. And trust me, you know, it's a building process. It's not always easy because one of the things that we talked about also that was very important is getting rid of the old way of thinking. Because from prior relationships that people have, a lot of times you carry that baggage of the memory. You carry that baggage of the pain. You carry that baggage of how you did things with that person. And when you do that, you bring those habits with you. So those are some of the other things that we talked about being able to forget about, not so much forget about, but not to bring that baggage with you and to find ways to get rid of that baggage. And a lot of times my husband had to tell me a lot of times, Mama, I'm not that person, you know, and a lot of times we had to talk about the fact that we were not each other's past, but that we were each other's now and each other's future. And that was very important to us as well. You know, building the foundation is very important. We talked about the differences that you know, I'm going to tell you the honest truth. One of the major things in our relationship that I find to be not just pivotal, but it's probably our golden rod is the ability to talk, that there's nothing that I cannot talk to you about. And that's just amazing to me. I don't have to hold back my thoughts or my feelings. I could talk to you about everything. It doesn't matter how personal the thought is. There's no limits to what I could talk to you about, and that means everything to me. The one thing I had to learn, though, and still learning sometimes, I have to say, is that timing is everything. You know, I learned that sometimes I want to get it off my chest because that's just, I got to say it now. But I'm learning that there's a right time for every conversation. And sometimes you have to just, my husband has this thing of saying, just going to sit on my hands. So sometimes you have to sit on your hands, which means just bite your tongue a little bit and just wait, because I found out that when I wait, that there is an opportunity opened up for us to have those hard conversations. And they don't turn into yelling matches or disagreements. We actually find a way to understand each other. You know, being able to hear what the other person is saying. And last but definitely not least, and there's a lot of things, but this is the last point I want to bring up right now, is perception. We had to understand, and we're still learning each other's language, which I think is awesome. And that language is turning out to be the language of the heavens as well. Like you broke down the verses that you broke down, it's not just what's right in front of you, it's what's underneath the words that are so important. And that's something that we have learned and are still learning now, is that the perception, everybody's perception is true to them. But we have to not just listen or hear to what a person is saying, but we have to listen to what each other is saying, because sometimes we might think that we mean that my husband might mean one thing and he means something different, and sometimes he might think that I mean one thing and I mean something different. So in learning each other, we're learning how to understand each other's perception and the way that we talk, and able to tame our language so that each other knows that where we are. But I want to say to you, Daddy, that I love you. And I'm so grateful for the man that you are, because it's not just what we share with each other on a natural level. It's what we share with each other on a spiritual level. Just like he's teaching right now, he teaches me. And I'm very grateful for that.
You're welcome, Mama.
And you're listening to Raw But Real 613.
Now I want to leave this with this last thing off. And I'm leaving this scripture right here, and this will begin in part 2 with discussing the aspect of a person acquiring additional wives. There's a process of how everything has to be done, and it has to be done in accordance to a lawful aspect. But I want to read this because I got a few brothers. And it's about what one desires. But I'm going to read you this out of Exodus chapter 21, verse 10 and 11. It says, if he marries another woman, he must not deprive the first one of her food, clothing, and marital rights. And if he does not do these 3 for her, then she shall go out free without any payment of money. I'm not going to break that completely down today to you, but I'm going to summarize this right here for you. The food is the communication. The support is the clothing, is the knowing and the expression of feeling that you're actually being cloaked with love, that has not diminished. And the marital right is always having that sense of an appetite for that of your wife without her feeling deprived of that. Now, we men, we can destroy all that. We destroy it by the fact that if, say, for instance, you have a lustful eye for that of another woman, conversation and with them butterfly feelings, you feeling like you have them with her, that all of a sudden you can talk to her now, this new addition, but now you're feeling lackluster being able to hold those same type of conversation with your first wife. That brings problems. Now, your first wife feels like she's not being showed her, or she's not being felt, or she's not being sincerely adored in the way that you previously had done. So now you're not providing her appropriate clothing. And now, all of a sudden, with your new additional woman and your new aspirations, now you feeling now you becoming lackluster in your intensity in providing your wife the type of gratification that you have priorly shown, a real interest in her. These 3 things was very important, and this is why Father spoke in such a beautiful language. Because for those of us men that's born in this day and time, we're not born with the answers. We're not born with this understanding. A lot of us coming from urban neighborhoods, or whether you're coming from the right family structures, this knowledge is not just being spoken of in an appropriate way to where it's digestible to a men's conscience. This is why Father Yahweh said, if you don't do any of these 3 things, she shall go out free, which means clear, exempt from any form of liability. And I've seen in situations where some of my own brethren had acquisitions, new ones, and all of a sudden 4 months later, we're talking. I'm like, well, where's this one? Oh, yes, she's no longer in the picture. Why? Because he pushed her away. Why? Because he provoked her to anger. Why? Because he brought about the hardship, and he became hard, and he found his means to escape out of that situation because now he don't feel like he has no obligation to it because you broke it. You broke the foundation. When the foundation is built right, everything moves smoothly. When it works in accordance to the way that Yahweh specifically has given us. But we're not in the world to where everything is purposed to work smoothly. We're in a world to where everything is working in reverse against what it is that we're standing for. And that's why Yahshua gave that beautiful parable. He who builds his house on this foundation by my words. When the winds, the storms, and the rain comes, that house shall stand. But when it's built upon sand, this is the sand he's talking about when we're building our own household and we're not building our foundation the way it needs to be built appropriately. Because when each other are raised right, when I'm able to hear my wife when she's speaking upstairs and I'm able to hear her voice and she's able to hear my directions when I'm speaking upstairs, when I'm acknowledging where I'm wrong and where she comes in and she says, Daddy, I'm wrong on this specific area, and we're able to see each other's error, and from upstairs, we getting both hit across the head. It's allowing us to withstand the things that may come against us. On her part, the seductiveness, the slight of men coming at her in various different ways, or the obstacles that may come from various forms of women, other women, or just the general obstacles that may come from the world of politics. It allows us to build a unifying structure to where our trust becomes that of upstairs, because this world is not meant for complete peace. It's meant to test us. And when we have the right structure, the right foundation, we're able to build on it together and make our foundation firm before any other steps are necessarily made. And it has to be made appropriately. I don't have all the answers. Yes, I'm a mere man, a mere human being instead of anybody else. And I tell my wife every day, and I tell her this over this broadcast. I always tell her I don't want to be perfect, because a perfect man does not have no room for growth. I always want something wrong with me, so it always keeps me humble. But I know the strength that I desire, and my commitment and my loyalty, I want supreme number one. But anything other than that, far as small deficiency, characteristic traits, and blemishes that I may have, I don't mind those. I just ask her to bear with them. But I don't mind those because it keeps me humble. It keeps me always with something to strive for. But I just brought that up, scripture up, just for you listeners and you men out there, y'all to see the lawful aspect of it, for you to hear it, for you to be able to go back and read it for yourself. Break it down and see if whether or not what's written, what lies underneath, is actually there.
Can I say something really quickly? Because you said something that I thought was really powerful that I really wanted to reiterate on just for a second, that I would like for all of our listeners and couples to hear, is when one of the things that we have learned as well is that we're not in competition with each other, and we're not trying to prove each other right or wrong. So when my husband is right about the fact that sometimes we both get beat upside the head, but the wonderful thing I love is the fact that I never feel slighted to come back and say to my husband, you know what, Daddy, I was wrong. You know, because what we should always do, and he does the same thing to me, because what we always do is understand that every time we're corrected, that means that we're growing. Especially if we take the correction, then we're growing. So it's a wonderful thing to be able to hear from upstairs and to know that we have a conviction about something that we need to correct about our character, and we don't feel slighted about it. We don't feel like, oh, my goodness, he's right. Oh, man. not like that. It's like, oh, wow, Daddy, I just learned something. And that growth is what we're looking forward to. And I just wanted to share that because you brought it up, and I thought that was a powerful place to be as well, that couples understand that you're not in a competition with each other. It's not about right and wrong or up and down. It's about us growing together and learning together. And I love the fact that we're able to do that. I come to my husband and say, you know what, you was right, I was wrong. Oh, you know what, I found out I need to improve on this. Oh, you know what, and I need to fix myself on that. And I love the fact that we can wake up in the morning and understand that there's room for growth and that we're on that growth process.
Beautifully said. And with that said, you just tapped in to Raw But Real. For those of you, 613. The 613 means it's in accordance to the 613 of the laws of Yahweh. So we just want to leave you listeners with that. Please share this. Please go back and study it. We not and we won't profess to be any specific teachers in a certain particular sense, because we always keep ourselves humble. But it's just important for this information to get out there to you. Please subscribe to Raw But Real. Listen in, because there will be more of this coming at you. And with that said, we would like to play to you this last song as we begin to end this night. And this song is called Close to You by Jill Levert.
Suddenly appear every time you are near, just like me. They long to be close to you.
Why do stars fall down from the sky every time you walk by? Oh, just like me, they long to be close to you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
On the day that you were born,
Yeah.
the angels got together and decided to create a dream come true. Yes, they did.
So they sprinkled moon dust in your hair, starlight in your eyes, like they do.
Like they do. That is why all the guys in town follow you all around. Just like me. They long to be close to you, baby. Ooh, baby. If only for a minute, I'd settle for an hour. And if you could stay just for one day, that would make me so happy, happy baby. See, it won't hurt to give another try. Girl, don't you pass me by, 'cause I'm that kind of guy who's gonna love and treat you like a queen.
That is why all the girls inside
They don't mean nothing, baby.
follow you all around.
I only have eyes for you, girl,
Just
just
like me,
like me.
they long to be close to you.
I can feel it whenever we touch it, whenever we talk it, whenever we want together.
All the time.
Close to you. I wanna be. Come a little closer, babe.
Come a little closer,
Lay your head up on my shoulder,
on my
babe.
shoulder, babe. Boy, you know I can't deny it.
Girl, you know I can't
You're
deny
not
it.
gonna set my soul on fire.
How I long to be closer to you, baby. Oh, I can't believe that.
We're
Hugging and kissing and squeezing each other, and I am the one to get close to.
This has been Raw But Real. Please follow us on Twitter at Raw But Real 613 and on Facebook at Raw But Real 613.
Get to Old Navy. Today only. Get 50% off all men's shirts. Get your guys the styles they love. That's right, 50% off all men's shirts at Old Navy and OldNavy.com. Hurry, it's today only. Valid 6/14, excludes in-store clearance.